Today we're going to talk about shock shimming or shock spacing. And this is a question which I often get asked as to why do we shim the shock away from the shock tower and from the lower arm. And it's already shimmed in the kit, in the basic setup. It's already advised for you to shim the shock away from the arm and the tower. So this has been something that we've been using for many years. We started running it already for the T3 car. And the reason why we're doing it is basically to free up the car a little, to make it a little smoother to drive. So what do you do when you shim the shock out? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain a vertical angle to the ground, so the shock sits in a straight line from top to bottom. We don't play with the shock being angled in this direction. So basically, we've tested out before, and I have to say that it's really a minimal difference when you try to angle the shock in this direction. And what you do in that case is that you're actually making the damping more progressive. So that's something that we don't want. We want the shock to be working as linear as possible. So our basic setting for the middle wheelbase, for the kit wheelbase, is 4 millimeters at the top of the front shock and 1.5 at the bottom. This is a little different to the initial setting from the manual, but this is my personal preference because I feel that the shock is in a completely straight angle with that setting. And at the rear I use 3 millimeters at the top between the shock and the tower and none at the bottom. So this way shock is a bit spaced out, but it's still in a vertical angle to the ground. And something that you need to keep in mind is that when you change your wheelbase, for example, if you shim your front arm backwards, like we sometimes do on high grip surfaces, then you need to make up for that by using more shims for the bottom spot of the shock. So if you move the arm backwards, for example, by 0.5 of a millimeter, then you need to compensate for that by adding 0.5 of a millimeter to the lower shock spacing as well. So you maintain the same shock angle, but the arm is obviously moved backwards. So keep that in mind, that when you make a wheelbase change, it will also affect the shock angle. What happens when you shim the shock out? Basically, you take away a little bit of grip, because what you actually do is you make the damping slightly softer. So it's a bit of the same effect as when you would lay the shock down on the tower. So when you lean the shock in, it makes the damping a little softer. And it's about the same feeling, not exactly, but it's a more subtle change. So when you shim the shock out, you take away a little bit of grip from that end of the car. So for example, if you feel that the car is too much on its nose, too edgy to drive or such, then you will need to shim the front shock out more. And on the other hand, if you need to free up the rear of the car, the rear is too stuck and has too much grip, you can actually shim the rear shock out from the tower and from the arm to free up the rear. So most of the time we run both shocks with spacers behind them to free up the whole car, to give it more corner speed, especially in high speed sections. Will make it less edgy to drive, and that's just something that's been better for the handling for most conditions. So you can still fine tune with it, you can shim it in and out a little bit, but our basic setting is with shock spacers for that reason, that it makes the car a little smoother, carries better corner speed, and yeah, that's why we recommend using it. So what is the exact theory behind it? To be honest, it's hard to describe it perfectly, but the reason is that when you move the shock away from the tower and the arm, you actually create a leverage from here to the arm. The leverage is bigger the further away the shock is, so it actually is gonna flex more because of how it's mounted with a screw at the top and the bottom. And obviously the carbon fiber shock tower, it can flex, and when the force is applied to the shock, the further away it is, the less effective it will be. So it's actually gonna be more affected by the flex of the parts. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why it feels softer, like a softer damping when you shim it out, because of that leverage that is bigger the further away that it is. And that's the best way I can describe it. And yeah, I hope that it's been clear and that you can refer to this video in the future. Let me know if there's any questions about the shock spacing. Yeah, thank you.